All right, so now we're going to look at number 24 from practice test 1. The question identifier, it's 3.3.41. So this is from section 3.3. And so if you want to look for it, that's what you would look for. So, oops. So what we are doing, we are being asked to name 2 measures of the center of a distribution and state the conditions under which each is preferred for describing the typical value of a single data set. So I'm going to come down here, and for numerical data, which is what we're working with right now, there's 3 things, and I kind of borrowed this from the PowerPoint. I really liked how they presented these 2 different ways to look at it. So, we mentioned shape, center, and spread before when we were talking. So we're doing the same thing again. We're looking at shape, and we're going to determine, and we're really looking for, is it symmetric or skewed? Center, what's the mean or the median, and then spread, we're either going to use standard deviation or interquartile range. And to kind of determine what to do, we always want to, so to choose the measure, you're going to begin with the picture of your data. So, make a picture. And that's something we used to do, in a lot of my stat classes, start with data. The first thing you do, try to analyze your data, you want to start with the picture. So for the shape, we look at whether it's symmetric or it's skewed, and depending on whether it's symmetric or skewed, you're going to use either the mean and standard deviation or the median and interquartile range. So if your data is symmetric, then you will use mean and the standard deviation. Mean and standard deviation are linked. You want to think about it like these guys are married. You aren't going to use mean with interquartile range. You'll never do that. So you will always use the standard deviation if you are using the mean. Okay. So if your data is skewed, on the other hand, you are going to use the median and the interquartile range. So if you're using the median, if your data is skewed, you will always use the interquartile range. So you don't mix and match these guys. They're like at the dance, they stay with their partner. Coming up here, we're going to put these things together in this question. This also sets us up for some of the later problems that we have coming. One measure of the center of a distribution is the blank. This measure is preferred when blank. So looking at our choices for one measure of the center, the only one of these that's a measure of the center is the mean. And when do we use the mean? We use it when your data is symmetric. So it needs to be relatively symmetric for the second. So we want to say mean here. And when it's relatively symmetric, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to be pretty much symmetric. One measure of the center for number 3, that's going to be the median. Median is the measure of the center. And we prefer that measure when your data is skewed. So relatively strongly skewed. So, if we say it can be relatively symmetric, then you want it to be strongly skewed, I guess. So, so you need to see that, because if it can be not perfectly symmetric and still use the mean, but you really need to see that skewing. So strongly skewed. You'll get a sense for it the more you do it. If y'all are just in the intro class, but if you are going to be somebody who's going into a field that uses statistics a lot, you will see these things and you'll get a good sense for how it works in your particular field. Again, number 24, we're looking at practice test 1. This is question from section 3.3, and it's 41.